Hey everyone, I'm Tassenix. Welcome back to another mod guide video. We're continuing on with the 501st Legion series. Having just finished up General Skywalker in the last video, we're now moving on to CT-7567 Rex. He is tagged as a support, and his purpose on the team is to be the engine. Later in the fight, he gains appreciable damage, but for the most part, he's protecting and motivating the rest of the team. Before we dig into the details about his kit, for the purpose of this video, we will assume that you'd be running him under General Skywalker's lead, so I do have a little reduction of that on screen here. And for full details about how General Skywalker's leadership works, I will include a link in the video description here to the gas video, so check that out for full details. Anyway, General Skywalker's leadership, General of the 501st. In terms of modding, the impacts to think about are all units can't be revived, so the only life you get on the first go is the only life there is, alright? All 501st allies have plus 50% critical damage, and when an enemy gains a buff, all 501st allies gain 2% offense, stacking until the end of the encounter. So there's quite a bit more going on there with the advance and cover mechanics of General Skywalker, but again, that's covered in detail in his video. Let's jump in on Rex himself, starting with his base unique captain of the 501st. All 501st allies have plus 4% speed for each 501st ally present at the start of battle. Other 501st Clone Trooper allies reduce their own ability cooldowns by 1 at the start of each of their turns. If Ahsoka Tano is an ally, she gains critical hit immunity for 2 turns whenever she falls below 100% health. So, yeah, having full 501st means that everybody's getting an extra 20% speed from this move, right? This is actually really critical for Rex himself, since we will mod him pretty fast, and he's able to kickstart his entire team. We'll see more about that in a minute. I did have a good comment from somebody on the General Skywalker video about, can I use my Ahsoka Tano instead of, farming up ARC Trooper? And the answer is technically yes. She is technically tagged as 501st, and you could use her here, but I personally do favor ARC Trooper. And I did give a good detailed response in the comment on the gas video about that. But yeah, there is a minor synergy here to keep her around, because I think she also gets bonus health while she has crit immunity. So this is going to hopefully sustain her a little longer. Kind of a minor detail though. The real takeaway is the speed. Okay, we'll cover his leadership last because it is technically usable. I'll mention it briefly in applications, but again, we're assuming you're with gas. So, his basic, impeding shot. Deal physical damage to target enemy and remove 25% turn meter. Grant potency up for 1 turn to a random 501st Clone Trooper ally who doesn't already have it. So this could go back to himself. This turn meter removal is kind of nice. If you ended up with mods on him in the end that had some amount of incidental potency, it wouldn't go to waste for just the sake of this basic. Wouldn't put a lot of special emphasis into it though, especially since when he does it, he himself could randomly get the potency up, which is to your benefit. His first special, Form Up. Dispel all debuffs on all allies and grant them tenacity up for 3 turns. Clone Trooper allies gain 60% turn meter plus an additional 10% turn meter for each debuff dispelled in this way, and other allies gain half these amounts. Okay, so it's a huge boost to the other clones on the team. Another reason why I favor ARC on this team as opposed to Ahsoka. But the big takeaway is this huge burst of turn meter, okay? 60% turn meter. And, if you've got him modded really fast, for most matchups, he may be the first character to go. So I don't really rely on getting this bonus turn meter from dispels. But say after the first usage of this, when you're coming up to use it again, you probably have some kind of debuffs on your team, so you get a little extra for your trouble. All right. And then his second special, Aerial Advantage. Deal physical damage to the target enemy plus bonus damage equal to 25% of the target's max health for each turn a clone trooper ally has taken during this encounter. This ability starts on cooldown. So it doesn't even necessarily require that it's a 501st clone ally that's taking turns, just any clone trooper ally, and for each clone trooper ally that has taken a turn, he gets to have 25% increased damage. So again, another reason I favor Arc in this team over Ahsoka is you'd be leaving a decent amount of damage stacking on the table. Alright, so what does this all mean? Well, I guess we'll cover his leadership real quick and start digging into the turn order. But his leadership is brothers in arms. Clone Trooper allies and 501st allies have 20% max health. So, in fact, if you're a clone and 501st, you get to double dip on that, right? This increase is doubled for 501st clone troopers and halved for other allies. In addition, whenever an ally suffers a critical hit, all clone trooper allies gain 15% turn meter and other allies gain half that amount. So if you didn't have General Skywalker, this is a really viable leadership candidate for the 501st clones. And in fact, in 3 versus 3, it's really common to split off, having General Skywalker with like Arc and Echo, and then Rex with 5s and some other third character. It's a pretty decent leadership, so honorable mention. Okay, a brief note on team comps and turn order. Now, I went in a little bit more detail about this in the General Skywalker video, so feel free to check that out for the full details. But in your 5-man team, all these teams shown here are shown in desired turn order, okay? Rex is going to be the quickest one, all right? Because of that turn meter pull-up, he's going to kickstart all of your other characters, which is just not good for the enemy team, all right? And then, as soon as he uses form up and pushes all that turn meter, now it's on cooldown and we'll have it again just as soon as possible. If you've got him screaming fast, it'll come very quickly. All right, so that being said, Rex over Arc, over General Skywalker, over Echo, over 5s. And then here's that 3 versus 3 split that I, just briefly mentioned. Again, Gas video has the full deets. Now, I did take a survey of some of the top players here in the game, and I looked at their Rexes, and some of them have them modded with like a 2-piece of tenacity. Some of them have them in protection primaries, like on cross and on circle. For my part, what I'm seeing consistently is everybody's just going for really fast. Okay. Now, what does really fast mean? All right, up at my neck of the woods, I'm just going to go ahead and show this right now. He's 333 speed, and if I could have it my way, he'd be 334, because if I do 334 times 1.2, it's 400 on the nose. And if you watch my stream, one of my favorite counters to Gas 501st is having bounty hunters with Aura Lead go against it. Now that requires that you've got some pretty fiercely fast modding in your Bosk, your Grief, your Mando, and your Zam to push enough speed in the team so that Bosk, Grief, and Mando are all faster than 501st Rex. It's a pretty significant undertaking because Rex is a naturally fast character that everybody kind of mods for speed, and then he's giving himself 20% speed with a full team of 501st allies, right? So he is dreadfully fast, and whenever I have a counter like those bounty hunters to go after the 501st, I try to mod my own 501st to be able to resist the same, right? So, basically it would take something like closing in on a 400 speed Rex to block out my bounty hunters. And so 333 ends up being what? Yeah, 399 speed effective at the start of battle, right? You probably do not need to be this fast. It's about what you think your opponents are going to use if they're going to try something tricky like bounty hunters. But otherwise, if they're going to use something overwhelming, like a JML, a Lord Vader, a Sith Eternal, something like that, the speed of Rex really isn't going to make that big of a difference between what's a decent speed, and what's a crazy speed. So I showed you the crazy first, okay? I'm like 333, ideally 334. If you were for any reason faster than 334, I would think you're a madman. I can't imagine why you would ever need that, but you could. That said, I think 310 is a really good mark to go for. This is a very fast character, so, you know, I mean, what is that? So, I mean, that's 23 speed off of mine, all right? So that's like a plus 150 set of speed on Rex. I think 310 is a great mark to go for, because if we do 310 times 1.2, he's 372, right? That is faster. I mean, think of it like this. Like, people's Moff Gideons back in the day were really fast, like 380, right? Now they could be 370 or lower. I see that a lot. You would effectively be faster. I'm not saying that there's necessarily a cheap counter using Moff Gideon, but he used to be part of some type of shenanigans. The idea is, though, you're creating a speed check with Rex, right? So the higher you can afford to push his speed, the more lesser counters you pressure out from even having a chance to set foot into the battle, right? As far as the rest of it goes, the primaries are kind of whatever. Obviously, if we're going speed set, we do want a speed primary arrow. What I've tried to do is bulk this guy out. I want him to be as thick as possible because he's a priority target. You know, sometimes when opponents are fighting your 501st team, they'll take a look at how thick your 5s is, and they'll have to make a decision. Do I just try to bully through your 5s, or do I try and kill Rex, and that forces 5s to sacrifice himself? And then, you know, do I try to burn down Rex again, even though he's empowered by Rex? Like, and if you're trying to do that to me, then I'm going to make it harder for you by having health primaries, you know, to synergize, okay? So I've already got all this health in here, and I figure this is a good way to go. Now, like I said, I'm seeing other top players do protection primaries, whatever they kind of have to hit a decent speed mark. I think 310 is a really reasonable minimum. 320 is great. 330 is pushing on extreme. But think in those terms, and yeah. In the end, I end up having just under 88,000 health at Relic 8. I'd be something like... I'd be 95 plus, pushing on close on to 100,000 if I really put the effort into it with Relic 9. So that's like a long-term consideration for me that I'm nowhere near close to. I've got a lot of other characters I'd rather Relic 9 first. But you can see that the strategy of having like a really big Rex means that if you're going to try and bully me down, you know, while I'm waiting, or while you're trying to get through 5s, you can really be punished for that. However, I do see strategic benefit in the protection, right? Because you can't lose any health. You can't lose any health while gas is standing. So that means that, you know, an enterprising opponent might try and blow out all of the protection on your Rex before gas sits down, and that way, while he's in cover, now your Rex is exposed, maybe you can just blow him up. You could say that, oh well, I'll make it harder for him by him having a high protection pool. And then whatever the health is, when gas sits down, it is what it is. I decided to go with a bigger health pool so that, yeah, go ahead, strip away my protection, but when you finally do get a crack at my Rex, he's still going to have this massive health pool you have to get through. God help you if he gets all the stat gains from 5 sacrifice. So I would say that there's a reasonable argument to go either way, but the real answer is just go for what's fastest and what you can afford to give him, all right? So that said, health primary, health primary, health primary here, speed arrow, just as fast as I could tack him up to be. A little bit of offense to boot doesn't hurt. In the past, I've had his triangle as a crit damage triangle, thinking that's probably making a big difference. I think over time I came to favor survivability for just the reasons I mentioned. It's really just more useful to have him as a, you should probably think about killing me, target, as opposed to just having that much more damage. Because the threat of Rex as a loss condition is him getting a lot of charge built into aerial advantage. And the kind of damage that does later in the fight, I don't know that the crit damage triangle matters so much. Just him getting to live that long to get that big with that ability is kind of the focus, all right? But again, it's hit the speed and worry about the rest of the details later is my advice. So just a little bit of offense added here. As a physical damage attacker, I like him not less than 75% crit chance. It just so happens that he ended up getting a little bit, just being about 80%. Some armor lends our way, right? We're going for kind of a survivability thing with him, aside from being super fast. So yeah, bulk and armor, not a terrible way to go. Okay, last but never least, I wanted to cover a little bit about applications, because this guy is pretty damn good. So I sorted here for 3 versus 3 first, just to highlight a little bit more about Rex's leadership. You, for the most part, won't be getting mileage out of this in 5 versus 5, particularly if you have General Skywalker, but you can see that this turn meter thing from his leadership, you're able to lap enemies. So last 3 versus 3 season against an Inquisitor Kron, Grand Inquisitor with 7th and 9th was falling to this. A B team of Inquisitors, Hera, Krex, Phoenix in 3 falls to this. Bamqueel IG-11, Bosk, wow, GG too. That's you see there's no stat in here, so this is kind of a lesser GG composition. But basically you're thinking anything that I can lap, you're gonna kind of beat. And using Captain Rex in here as your middle character means that you have that AoE tenacity down and daze. That's, you can see that it's like, if you're not gaining speed and I'm gaining a ton of bonus turn meter, I'm just gonna take a billion turns and you die, right? So that said, this is showing like offensive counters using this team. I really like it mostly on defense, and you can kind of see for yourself what it draws. That being said, I did have a tab over here on 5s. Just a brief highlight. Again, for those of you who don't have General Skywalker, you might mix him as the leadership with 501st and possibly Bad Batch clones. Look at this. Some people were using Bad Batch Echo and Tech here with Arc and 5s under Rexley to take on Jabba last 5 versus 5 season. All right, so this leadership is pretty powerful. Just gas is better. So, yeah, Hera, Krex, Night Sisters, Ewoks, sortie lead teams, all kinds of stuff can go down to Rex lead. Now, again, in the last video, I talked in General Skywalker's video about the kind of stuff that he really takes on, and I'll just show again here in 5s because it's demonstrative of how you would use him either way. He's here basically to stomp any team that's about gaining buffs or about exploiting revives to get the job done. So tons of buffs and revive in Mon Mothma. No wonder at all that you just destroy anything like this. You've got buffs galore on Dash, Trench, Saw. You've got revives and buffs on Radis. You know what I'm saying? You've got revives and buffs on Ewoks, on Mother Talzin, so on. Bounty Hunters, you have a ton of buffs on, so on and so forth, right? Like, there's a number of galactic legends that General Skywalker is able to effectively fight just because of how strong that leadership is. So certainly anything that's lesser than that, that's relying on these buff and revive mechanics, you're just gonna gobble them up. All right? So, that about wraps this up. Rex is an amazing character. The engine that drives the rest of the team forward. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, please do give a like here on YouTube. And if you want to stay tuned for what's to come, give a subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thanks again to everybody for your participation in the comments. Love interacting with you guys. Thanks for all the encouragement. Really appreciate it. And until our next video, it's been real. It's been awesome. It's been real awesome. Take care.